I'd like to call this special city council meeting to order. Roll call of Alderman.
Alderman Heisler.
Here.
Alderman Kinsella.
Here.
Alderman Meyer. Here. Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Rudgewitz.
Here.
Alderman Randall. Alderman Anthony.
Here.
Alderman Davidson. Alderman Silsby. Alderman White. Alderman Hayden.
Here.
Alderman Seibert.
Here.
Alderman Galletti.
Here.
Alderman Musgrove.
Here.
Alderman Orlett.
Here.
Alderman Schneider.
Here.
Alderman Randall, Davidson, Silsby, and White are all excused. There's no department heads that are mandated to be here tonight other than Eric Schauster is here at my request. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask you to please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go any further tonight, I would just like to ask that we would pause for a moment and have a moment of silence in memory of Bill Loogie, who was buried today, longtime city employee, director of our maintenance for many years, just a great guy. Took care of that fountain downtown like it was his baby, and it was just, I never met anybody that didn't like Bill, and that's sometimes hard to say these days. So if we could pause for a minute in memory of Bill. Thank you. We have no public hearing tonight, but I do want to go over, we will allow public participation in just a few moments, and when I do raise your hand, I will call on you. Please try to keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes and to preferably to the special meetings agenda. The other thing I want to go over is there's a few new people here. If we would have any storm sirens go off, and there's a little bit of weather that's forecasted the next few hours, I think that's possible for the region. We would go out the hallway, across from the clerk's office, down the stairs, into what an area is definitely deemed to be a storm shelter. If there was a fire, unfortunately something was smoke or fire and we had to leave the building, we'd ask you to go out the front door, carefully cross at the light, and go meet in front of the sign, the St. Clair County sign by the courthouse, just so we could kind of gather up and see if it looked like everybody who was sitting next to us is all present. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. With that said, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and open public participation. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Chris Rothweiler. I live at 3125 Roan Hill Drive in the city of Belleville. I'm also a member of the City of Belleville Planning Commission. I want to speak this evening quickly in support of the TIF, the establishment of the TIF district, as well as the project that's being considered. The reason that I say this is that, you know, we cannot just pretend that Belleville exists under a dome here, that we're the only place that this project can go, a $50 million project that we're looking at. And we have competition. We have other communities, other areas that they can take this project to, and I hope they're not in the room listening. But in any case, they can do that. So this is an important project for the city. Secondly, if you have a comprehensive plan, as a member of the City of Belleville Planning Commission, one of the goals of the comprehensive plan is the development of a convention center and hotel. Belleville does not have a first-tier hotel in terms of like Hyatt, Hilton, that sort of thing. This is consistent with the plan which this council passed just recently in the last year. So it meets the criteria for being part of the comprehensive plan. In the plan, it also talks about the city doing the development of a hotel and convention center. Well, you have a private individual here wanting to spend up to $50 million to do that. We need to really consider doing that. The other part of this is the TIF district. The TIF district is a tool used by communities to lure development. And the bottom line to this whole thing is, if they don't build anything, Belleville gets nothing, zero. If they build this project, Belleville does enhance its tax base by doing so, providing some jobs out there in the hotel and other places out there that they're going to develop. So it's in the interest of this community to do that. And finally, it's in the interest for the livability of the city. Having places to shop, places to eat, places to go, hotels for the residents, et cetera, is in the interest of continuing to move Belleville forward. So I urge you to support the TIF district and support this project. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Wayne Muni, 518 Portland Avenue, Belleville. I support the project out on this shrine, but I think we need to make sure we talk about there's no investment from the city. The city spends up front for the sewer project $2 million plus $500,000 for the study, so that's $2.5 million. Has the city done the number crunch to see how many years it'll take to recapitalize that initial investment? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is William Bremen Sr., better known as Big Bill. Mr. Mayor, the scuttlebutt on the street is that the meeting on Monday night was canceled because you didn't have 9 yes votes.
Sir, state your concern, because that's scuttlebutt.
Well,
You're
that
right.
is a concern of mine. The other concern that I have would be for the alderman here. I've been helping one of the candidates for aldermanic position here in the city canvass the city the last week or so. And as I talk to citizens of Belleville, the major concern that they tell me is they are concerned about their streets. They're concerned about crime. I think the business of a city ought to be running a city. I don't think the business of a city ought to be running businesses. You know, as I look across the way from Oliver C. Joseph, I see Oliver C. Joe Buick over there. Sir, I was in the car business for 10 years. I'm here to tell you, there's a Buick dealership that's going to fail again. Now, this council decided that they knew better than General Motors as to whether that was a failing dealership or not. As I look around town, TIFs are designed to eliminate blight. You folks have created blight. I look at the Walmart project down there and I look at blight. I look at the Kmart and I'm looking at blight. I look at where the Abbey used to be and I'm looking blight. All I'm wondering is why this vote couldn't wait until after April the 7th to see how that vote would go. And I'll guarantee you that it would not pass, because the feeling is, I think the city needs to have a project like this, but I don't think we need to go on the hook for $15 million. $1 million lost is chump change compared to $15 million on the hook. So you guys decide how you want to vote tonight. Remember, people will know how you voted. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Michael Hagberg, 701 Centerville Avenue. I just want to say that everybody says a TIF is such a wonderful tool to spur development and get things moving along, that with Belleville's having 21 existing TIFs, I have to wonder why Belleville is not the size of Las Vegas. TIFs have not spurred development, and this is just another story that we heard with TIF 10, TIF 16, it goes on and on. You know, all this wonderful stuff, will it happen, won't it happen? I really hope that it does happen, but I think that, you know, until you roll the dice and see, we don't know, but you're taking stuff away from other TIFs that were promised this by just creating a new one, saying, well, we'll create a new one and we'll see if it happens this time. We'll see.
Is there anyone else this evening? Hearing none, I'm going to close public participation. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Gene Narber from Economic Development Resources to make a few brief comments about the Route 15 North TIF redevelopment plan. Mr. Narber?
Thank you, Mayor.
Why don't you use the microphone so we get it on recording, and then Eric will bring the board over a little bit.
Thank you, Eric. The council has before it this evening the Route 15 North Redevelopment Project Area Redevelopment Plan. There are a number of parts to the plan. The first 14 pages are for, including an introduction and table of contents, is the analysis of eligibility that has been previously presented to City Council, placed on file by the city, and really is the basis for the finding that the area does qualify as eligible for tax increment financing. New before you this evening starts on section Roman numeral 6, page 15, the findings of need for tax increment financing. I'd like to just put those on the record briefly. That the area on the whole is not subject to growth and development through investment by private enterprise. This area, for the benefit of those who see, this is about a 45-acre area along Route 15.
Your Honor, I know he's wanting to speak to the audience, but I had several people tell me the last time we did this presentation, when he was away from the mic, he could not be heard on the video. Thank you.
You're welcome. Being loud usually isn't something I have a problem with, but thank you. These 45 acres, about 12 acres included in the right-of-way along 15, about 33 acres of undeveloped property. This is north to Mazenod Drive. The shrine sits on the other side of Route 15. The findings, then, are that the area on the whole has not been subject to growth and development through investment by private enterprise. About 50 years ago, there was a road put in to this 33 acres for a residential development. The road's still there. Most of the road's still there. It's a pretty nice concrete road. Development has never occurred on these 33 acres, despite its location on Route 15. The finding is that the area has not been subject to growth and development through investment by private enterprise. As you can see, there is no private development on the property. The TIF plan is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The area in the comprehensive plan is identified for general commercial. There are statements, objective statements in the plan that identify that this is the type of activity that the city had desired to pursue in creating its current comprehensive plan, the City of Belleville, Illinois Comprehensive Plan Imagine Belleville. There's a finding on the estimated date for completion of the redevelopment project. The statute allows up to 23 years from the date of the adoption, and in fact, the date shall be no later than December 31st of the year in which payment to the municipal treasurer is made for the ad valorem taxes levied in the 23rd calendar year after the year in which the ordinance approving the TIF area is adopted by the City Council. What this finding does is recognize that this could go for the maximum length of the statutory life of a TIF, and that this TIF has the ability, as all do, to receive the 23rd year's increment when it is paid, because in Illinois, as we know, property taxes are paid a year in arrears. And the area would not reasonably be anticipated to be developed without the adoption of the redevelopment plan. As has been noted, this area has been fallow for, well, the 50 years since the roadway has gone in. There has been no development. The city issued a request for proposal. There was one proposal that the city received, and that proposal identified the need for tax increment financing in order to proceed, given the vacant nature of the property and the fact that it has remained so and likely will. We have a response to a proposal that has identified TIF as a key component in the development of this vacant property. The redevelopment plan starts on page 17. We have a series of objectives for this TIF area to reduce or eliminate, ameliorate the conditions which have made it eligible and to prevent their reoccurrence, to enhance the real estate tax base not only of the city but of all taxing districts that tax property in this area, to facilitate the implementation of the public sector plans and projects that are identified in the comprehensive plan, and to address the impact of the plan's redevelopment projects on the underlying taxing districts. And those are set out on page 17. And the last one on page 18, to encourage and assist private development and in the area in conformance with the comprehensive plan. TIF plans also have a program for accomplishing the objectives, and those 7 program items are listed on page 18. To use the TIF-derived revenues to assist in the implementation of the plan and the projects identified in the plan. To use those TIF revenues to address site development issues, including site preparation and stormwater. To mitigate any capital costs that underlying taxing districts may incur. To utilize the city and staff consultants to undertake those actions necessary to accomplish the public side activities for this TIF area. To provide financial assistance as permitted in the TIF Act. To monitor public and private activities, and to complete the specific actions in a judicious fashion, and to lengthen or to minimize the length of the time of the life of the TIF area. Again, statutory maximum of up to 23 years. The redevelopment projects are identified on page 19, and these include site preparation, including demolition, clearance, remediation, grading, the development of commercial buildings and structures, their associated parking fields, site screening, landscaping, including but not limited to the construction of the Hofbrau House, a gas and diesel convenience facility, 130-room upscale hotel, 30,000 square feet of convention center, up to 4 upscale restaurants, and the necessary infrastructure to serve such development, and to make improvements to the ingress and egress. Public redevelopment projects include mainly the extension of utilities to the site and the provision and extension of other city infrastructure to the parts of the area that are not served, and improvements in particular to the widening and resurfacing improvement of intersection, most particularly those improvements that will be needed along Route 15 and there at the intersection of North Damazenad and Route 15. The assessment of financial impact. This project will not generate any school-age children or public library patrons, and so the impact on those 2 taxing districts will not occur. There will not be new patrons, there will not be new school-age children. If any capital costs of taxing districts required because of TIF-related activities are identified, then TIF revenues may be used to pay for them. Page 20, estimated redevelopment project costs. That estimate appears following page 21, and these $16 million worth of costs include the cost of studies, surveys, development of plans, implementation and administration of the tax increment finance area, property assembly costs, including acquisition of land and other property, and the construction of public works or improvements, including but not limited to those on rights-of-way and various extensions and relocations of public utilities, and taxing districts' capital costs should they result from the redevelopment project. Total estimated budget is $16 million, and the TIF assistance to the developer is set at a number that will not exceed $6 million. The amount of TIF money going to the developer, is a maximum of $6 million. And remember that the way the money part of this has been put together, that the developer is fronting the money to undertake this project, and the TIF revenues will be available only to the extent that the project is built, assessed, and taxes are paid, because this is a rebate of certain taxes that are generated on site. The city is not going out of pocket for the developer's costs. Section Roman 8, implementation strategy. I'd like to get a couple of things down. The city of Belleville anticipates the following action as its implementation strategy. One is clearly to adopt the plan. We can't move forward unless the plan is adopted. To administer the redevelopment agreements with private parties to provide TIF revenues for eligible redevelopment project costs Those costs are outlined in the statute, and we've identified a number of them in the budget. Part of the implementation strategy is to provide public infrastructure and other public redevelopment projects to induce and complement those activities on the private side. And the other two items on the implementation strategy is to take those actions necessary to make the city contiguous to 2 or more municipalities that are within the Metro East Police District. And following that, should that occur, is to then review the public health and safety of the residents in order to determine if, as a result of the redevelopment project associated with this TIF area, more police officers are needed to protect public health and safety. If such a determination is made, then TIF revenues may be used to hire additional police. Estimated redevelopment project costs, a recitation of what is in the statute. On page 25, the most recent equalized assessed value of the parcel in the TIF area is $541. The valuation upon redevelopment. The redevelopment of this property will obviously generate a significant amount of property tax increment, and we believe that the equalized assessed value upon completion of all of the activities identified by the developer will be approximately $9,750,000, an increase of $9,749,500. Source of funds. Anticipated source of funds associated with implementing the plan are those funds collected pursuant to the Tax Increment Financing Act. We say on the bottom paragraph on page 25, costs and obligations may be paid for in whole or in part by revenues from other funding sources, and we do identify that state and federal programs, revenues from other TIF areas, revenues from the proposed Route 15 business district, and a portion of the city's hotel operators' occupation tax. Item E, nature and term of obligations. Obligations are not anticipated or contemplated at this moment in time. It is permissible that they be issued. It's not part of the redevelopment agreement, but it is permissible in the statute, and we believe it's prudent to place in the plan a statement that the city may issue obligations. Completion of the redevelopment project and retirement of obligations, again, the 23rd calendar year after the year in which the taxes are received after the passage of the ordinance. There's a commitment to certain employment practices, fair employment practices, affirmative action, and the prevailing wage requirement that's in the TIF Act. And the city does make a certification that the area contains less than 75 inhabited residential units, and that the redevelopment project itself will result in the displacement of less than persons, from less than 10 inhabited residential units. The plan may be amended, and the city, should the plan be adopted, the city will adhere to the annual reporting requirements that are found in the TIF Act, and those have to do with making a report to the Office of the Comptroller and meeting with the underlying taxing districts on an annual basis. The plan before you this evening is one that we are requesting be placed on file by the city, and then consequently to its being placed on file, ordinances adopting a date for the public hearing and an ordinance adopting the date for the joint review board be set. It's not the adoption of the plan this evening. It's to accept it, place it on file, and then consequently to adopt ordinances for the public hearing and for the joint review board. I will take the map.
Members of the council, do you have any questions for Mr. Narber? Mr. Narber, I thank you.
Well, I got questions, John, but I prefer to wait till we get the motion on the floor.
Okay. This time, Mr. Kinsella.
On behalf of the Economic Development and Annexation Committee, I move to accept the Route 15 North TIF redevelopment plan, place it on file, and send it to all underlying taxing districts and the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity.
Motion by Alderman Kinsella, second by Alderman Anthony. Any discussion? Who's first? Mr. Hayden?
First question I got, Your Honor, is just some house cleaning. When we met on the 16th, why didn't we ask that night or remind everybody that there's going to be a special meeting coming up and get a show of hands of who could be here?
Well, we had the packet, the sheet went out, Eric gave you probably, what, 3 or 4 weeks ago? In February. Everybody was given it and asked to put it on their calendar and explain this was the schedule that was presented so that we could keep this project moving forward. I know Carrie and one of my assistants made phone calls and left messages and emails to all of you starting on Thursday. And when Monday morning came and we had only for sure 7, a possible 8th, and definitely a few no's because they were out of town, et cetera, we didn't have a quorum. And that's why Monday morning we made that decision. But there was everybody should have received several emails and phone calls and messages left because they started either Wednesday or Thursday calling to remind the council. It was properly advertised and posted, and it was on the web. And you know, Eric is going to go over, before this meeting is over tonight, a few of the highlights or what's still to come. So we will try to.
I'm just saying, you know, when we get to these, you know, when we're at future meetings, maybe we should redo.
We can always do better. I don't disagree.
Go over that schedule, just so we're all.
I'll do my best.
Okay. Are the developers here tonight?
We got the Shrine representation, Chris Steele, and we have representatives from Kaskaskia Engineering who's working for the developer.
I want to ask too, as you recall, I'd sent several memos in the past. Have you or anybody in your staff elected, appointed, or anybody representing the city, whether it be Mr. Norbert, EDR, third party, has anybody from the city seen these developers' letter of credit and the analysis and studies they've done? Not the numbers that they gave us that we used to create our numbers that we could potentially make off this, but actually how those numbers were derived. And I specifically mentioned in those memos in the past studies that can be done as far as how many rooms that they participate in all that. Have we seen anybody, has anybody seen any of that evidence that they used to make the numbers that they gave us?
They have sat in numerous meetings with Eric and I don't know if Garrett's been in some of those, and we have had many discussions with their finance people, the people who are their investors. And while I have not asked to take copies because we are not going after the bonds, we're not securing them, and we're not putting any money up front on this thing, but they have been very open about the finances that they have secured for this, and the number of people who are joining their investment package. It's very impressive, but that's private information in many respects. A lot of it's still being developed, and they're still having final details worked out with some of the banks. And a lot of it is, as said by the TIF, it's contingent upon getting the TIF. If the TIF is not put in place, their final financing cannot be put in place. Because it's very clear, if that wasn't the case, then they wouldn't need the TIF. So they're following all the protocol. I think I told you before, I made a number of calls to mayors and other places, and everything was very positive. You know, I talked to the mayor of Effingham, the mayor of Mount Vernon, This, as we explained before, this project was vetted by the Shrine all the way to Rome. It went
But
all.
we have nothing in writing ourselves.
I have a lot of conversations I had, and I went to a lot of meetings, but I didn't ask for written documents from this developer at this time.
And you've heard the names of some of these investors that are behind the scenes, but
I've met them, several of them.
but they've not been brought forward to the public.
No, because I think the developer is waiting to see if the TIF in the business district goes into place, then they will make their final lock in the last pieces of their puzzle financially, and then it'll all be announced.
Okay.
Okay.
What is in place if this development starts and for whatever reason that they start building, they've incurred costs, and for whatever reason they are not as financially stable as possible, and they cannot pay the people that started the construction, and they would, and it might be a legal question to you, Mr. Horner, to protect us from a liability if somebody would want to, if they start construction, can't finish, and the people doing the work sue them for payment, what liability risk would the city have since we are in a three-party agreement?
Actually, we would not be part of the agreement with the individuals or entities constructing. They would contract for that service.
We have no liability at all.
Not to the contractors, no. Our contract is with the developer. It provides for the funding that Mr. Norber described after the construction and generation of such funding.
But because this is a three-party agreement with the municipality, that's what's forcing on page 26 that employees and practices must be paid affirmative action and wages, correct?
I don't know what agreement to which you're referring, but there is a
Disagreement.
requirement that the developer follow whatever requirements there are for items of prevailing wage, but the city is not contracting with the entities that are going to perform the construction.
So that was my question. So we would not have any liability risk on that matter.
Not to third parties.
On page 16, it states, would not reasonably be anticipated to be developed without the adoption of the redevelopment plan. Yet, we do have a developer that, from everything that's been stated, we've not seen it, or at least I've not seen it. The developer apparently has a letter of credit of $50 million. So isn't it, I look at that statement and it says it's not reasonably anticipated development would happen without the adoption of the redevelopment plan, but if this developer has this much money up front, could not it be argued that they could develop this without a TIF?
The developer has told us over and over, to make this development go, they need the components that they have requested, TIF, business district, and the enterprise zone. If those pieces are not in place, then they feel that their project is greatly in jeopardy. And as you know, we made it very clear, the maximum ceiling on the TIF is $6 million. The enterprise zone is what it always is. It's abatement of sales tax on building materials and on fixed equipment, right, Eric? And there's a tentative number that's been thrown out based on the numbers we're given. Eric, do you remember off the top of your head? So approximately $1.5 million that they will benefit from the enterprise zone by not having to pay tax on that. And the other topic is the 1% business district tax, which if people don't choose to shop out there, they won't pay it. For those of us who do go out to the Hopfer House or the hotel and we pay that 1%, the developer will acquire that as part of a way to help offset their investment. So except for a few minor things that we have done to get the annexation, legals, et cetera, done, and the sewer, which we believe, and Royce, I didn't make Royce come tonight, he's on vacation this week, but I don't have exact timetable, but over time, we will recoup the sewer. And keep in mind, if we're going to have any other development along that corridor, we will then now have sewer available. So we're actually working for the future.
I understand. I just, some could construe that as basically the 6 million that we're rebating back if they have the 50 million up front is basically, for lack of terms, padding their overall profit coming out of the project.
Mr. Ed, when they're trying to get that financing, the banks do look at any money coming back through the TIF
Absolutely.
as part of the collateral, so to speak, to where they see that there would be money coming in that they could pay back those loans.
Okay.
So
Correct.
that's all part of that package.
It's all part of the package.
Right, but we've not seen any, at least I've not seen anything as it relates to what their banks wanted and what they had to show.
Again, as the mayor alluded to, that without this being in place, they wouldn't get the financing anyway, so.
Okay. On page 19, the assessment of the financial impact, it states no financial impact on the schools, library districts, et cetera. I've asked this before, and I know we got a memo from the fire chief, but what, did you, Mr. Norber, has anybody done, and have we seen in writing any impact on the total services of the city of Belleville as it is now in relation to police, fire, streets, et cetera?
I've had conversations with the police chief, fire chief, director of streets. My staff firmly believes that there is no stressful strain being placed on our staff due to this annexation. We has always been a backup to Signal Hill Fire Department and to St. Clair County Sheriff's Department the past 60 years on this property. And as you know, Route 15 is a state IDOT responsibility. And as you also know from reading the annexation agreement, we're not taking over the streets of the Shrine on the Shrine side of the ministry side. And it's not even totally clear yet. There's a possibility that the main road into the development could be deeded to the city, but that's not even guaranteed for sure. And certainly all the other individual roads or parking lots, et cetera, will belong to the individual development. So we will have no responsibility to them.
Okay. All right, thank you. Page 20, when I was going through it, there's a lot. I read this 3 times today, and this is a lot of information. But the second paragraph states, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, the city anticipates that such investment may result in new private development occurring in the proximity of the area. Which areas are we particularly anticipating this development?
Well, first of all, there's 177 acres, and we're developing this first phase on 33 acres, correct, gentlemen in the audience? So there is the potential, and there has been some preliminary explanation, as you know, that there's more development to be had on those remaining acres, which therefore the sewer would be in place, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we're not guaranteeing anything there, but we also believe that the Route 15 corridor has a lot of potential for additional development coming back towards the Belleville Crossing area I will use as a landmark. And quite honestly, Eric and I have had calls in the last couple of weeks about some new development, in fact, 2 different developments that are in that region. And both of those contacts that we had and the follow-up we have coming is based on the fact that they are very pleased to see what's potentially happening at the Shrine.
Okay. I certainly hope you're right, Your Honor.
I do too.
I really have concerns that this could be a competing TIF with the other TIF, but now on the other 177 acres, if development comes, is it our intention to expand this TIF for that area?
It's way, way too early to even forecast that. It will all be dependent on what the next project might be, what the next proposal might be. And like I said, the only thing we do know is that we are proposing to the state to have the entire area on the north side put into the enterprise zone, correct, Eric? Except for the one building that's over there, I guess is carved out, right? The print shop. So we do know that the enterprise zone could be a tool in the toolbox to use for further development. But at this time, there's number one, there's no speculation on what the future other development might be, and there's been certainly no talk about any additional expansion of TIF, our business district, et cetera. We have not had the time, and we would definitely be putting the cart way before the horse. So that's not been talked about yet.
Now, Your Honor, on page, I guess it would be 20 and a half, where Exhibit E is estimated redevelopment project costs. Mr. Narber, can you give us a little more explanation of these costs, and even in more particular, when are these costs going to start happening, and who will pay for them, and when, and then when does the city be responsible for any of this, if any at all?
Well, Joe, are you being specific? Okay, you got the sheet that was given out tonight on the desk, right? The only thing we've had is we had some costs to do title.
I'm talking
Okay.
about, I'd like him to respond to Exhibit E on what estimated costs of these studies, what are these studies for, when are these studies going to happen, and who is going to be paying for these costs, and when does the city come up with any obligation to this, if any?
Are you talking about on the undeveloped acres?
Exhibit E.
You have it in front of you?
That's why I asked Mr. Narber, because he's the one that just went over it.
You want to, I mean,
I can address that.
yeah, please do.
I can address the amounts in particular. On Exhibit E, the cost of studies, surveys, development of plans and specifications, implementation and administration of the redevelopment plan. Over the 23-year life of the TIF, we had anticipated that the developer would incur approximately $1.3 million of such costs, and the city up to $1.2 million. Property assembly costs, including but not limited to acquisition of land and other property, real or personal, or rights or interests therein, demolition of buildings, site preparation, clearance and grading of land. $4 million, approximately $3.5 million for the developer for that line item, and for the city, approximately $500,000. Cost of construction of public works or improvements, including but not limited to public rights-of-way, signalization, extension and relocation of public utilities. Over the 23-year life of the TIF, the developer approximately $1.2 million. Sewer, I believe, had been discussed at about $2.5 million, and other public improvements for the remainder. And taxing districts' capital costs, should they result, $4 million. That would be on an annual basis.
Okay, Mr. Hayden?
The acquisition of land, what land's gonna be acquisition? My understanding is the Shrine owns it and the developers are leasing it. What potential
It'll be
acquisition
a
of
long-term
land?
lease with the Shrine.
Yes, the law states, the line
Can you use the
item
mic,
is
Mr. Narber? Can you please use the mic? Thank you. It's okay, thank you.
Trying to project.
I know.
The law says property assembly costs, including but not limited to, acquisition of land and other property, real or personal, or rights or interests therein.
Okay, okay. My last thing, Your Honor, I got actually two more. The page 21. The 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet point. Take those actions necessary to make the city contiguous to 2 or more municipalities within the territory of the Metro East District. How many are we contiguous to now?
We're contiguous to one right now, and we're working on the other one. And without going into detail publicly and jeopardizing the possible ways that we can make this happen, I'd prefer to just say the staff and attorney is working on it, and we believe it's doable. And if we make that happen and bring that back to the council for their approval, we would be in a position where then we could consider being reimbursed for some, up to 10% of the money for the, for law enforcement, for police protection, police officers.
The only one we're contiguous to now is East St. Louis, correct?
That is correct.
And it doesn't have to be just a TIF area, it's any part of the city, correct?
That's what Mr. Harner believes, and we're working on making that happen.
And if we do that, if I look at the next bullet point, to review the public health and safety residents, how are we going to argue that we need more police and use that 10% when we're publicly stating right now that this is not going to have any impact on our current police?
We believe that the current police situation, and Chief Clay firmly believes that we will be, right now, we're out there serving the shrine since we annexed it on January 1st. We are doing that now. But as development grows, we believe some additional police presence would be wise, especially if we can obtain it through some assistance through this opportunity. And we believe that the more people that come to this development as it's developed, and the more, opportunities that are created, additional police presence with the proximity of the area there, it would be very, very important. So that's what we're pursuing.
Okay.
I can't sit here and promise you guaranteed tonight, but I'm telling you what we're doing, what we're working on, and that we are making progress towards those ends.
Mayor, would they be required only to patrol that TIF area, or would they be open to go to other areas?
I think I don't have the exact limitations, and I'm not trying to nail that down and speculate tonight. It'll be the possibility of seeing if we have some money available to put towards some additional police to be hired. And I'll just have to leave it at that for now.
Okay, and the last I checked on this Metro East District and the statute, and I could be wrong, but it expires in 2019. Would that, at that time, mean that we could no longer use this TIF and this TIF money for that?
I think, as we know right now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of questions that aren't answered yet at this time with the state of Illinois. I think it's been the intent, and I can only say what I read and what I limitedly know. I think it's been the intent that they're hoping to renew this for additional period of time.
If I could,
Yes, please.
the portion of the TIF Act that references this type of opportunity makes reference back to the Metro East Police Act, but it doesn't expressly have an expiration on it. But again, that's something that we'll have to determine. You're not determining tonight or considering tonight whether to make a finding that that additional police protection is necessary. That's something you would do as part of your the findings associated if and when you consider the TIF ordinances. You're not tonight, before you tonight is not the consideration of the approval of this plan. I think Mr. Norber pointed out toward the end of his presentation that that is something that's going to be considered later. This is the acceptance of it in order to start the statutory process of receiving input. So it's premature under the statute to approve this plan. You're accepting it so you can distribute it to the taxing bodies, convene a joint review board meeting, so you can get their input. They are to make a recommendation of acceptance or rejection. You're also, and that's your first ordinance, is just convening the joint review board so you can get that input, and that's important input because they're impacted. The second ordinance that you're considering that's part of this initial motion is just merely the fixing of a public hearing. That's another requirement that you have. So that's an opportunity for the public to provide similar input. So tonight is not the approval of this plan. Tonight is to schedule and start the steps to get input from the taxing districts and the public. Is that correct, Mr. Norber?
Yes, sir. Well, but yes, Mr. Horner, but we're approving this redevelopment plan, and I'm wanting to know if we're gonna approve this plan, what are the potential things that are gonna happen and the potential benefits and costs, because that impacts, at least in my mind, it's an impact on everybody, their decision if they want to move this forward. I've already stated before that my biggest concern with this is the lack of vetting.
But I just want to point out there's a distinction between accepting this plan and approving it. It's premature to approve it because you haven't received the statutorily required input from the taxing districts and the public. So tonight, you're merely accepting this, and the reason you're accepting it is because the proposed plan has to be distributed to the taxing districts. You have to convene a joint review board meeting comprised of the taxing districts. They have to conduct that meeting and consider this and provide a recommendation. And then you also have this on, you're accepting it to place it on file because it has to be available for public inspection in advance of the public hearing to give an opportunity for the public to hear it. So the reason being, obviously, is you're not going to approve a plan before receiving that input.
But this plan can also, he stated earlier, be amended, so.
Sure, it can be amended based upon the input from the taxing districts and/or the input
And
from the
as
public
needs
and/or
develop.
your own volition.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. The last part, Your Honor, page 25, source of funds. Mr. Norber covered that section D, covered section E, nature and term of obligation, and he stated, and you have stated, that we are not going to sell any bonds to do this, but the language in here where it states that in addition, costs or obligations may be paid for in whole or part by revenues from other funding sources. These may include state, federal programs, revenues from any other tax, increment financing area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He says it's prudent that it should be in here. I think if we've told the public that we're not going to pay for anything until they build it and we get money, that it's prudent that it shouldn't be in here. Because if we're not going to do this and we have no intention of doing it, then why should it be in there? So I would like to make a motion to amend and strike sections D of page 25 and section E of page 26 and section F on page 26, which then states up front, in the course of things change, we can always amend this plan, but then we are telling the public and being honest and straightforward to them that we are not going to commit any other public funds or sources or sell bonds or notes for this project. And that's my motion to amend on accepting this plan.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to amend the plan as just stated by Alderman Hayden. I think that actually at the time, the proper time to amend the plan would be after the taxing bodies and everybody gave their input. Like I said, this is not language that we've not seen before, and it's nothing that we have not had in TIF developments. Eric?
In order to, we would have to amend the development agreement. If we were to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we would have to amend the development agreement first before we would put any obligations out up front, whether it be bonds or anything like that. So that really would be the first step. So leaving it in gives us the room, if we need to down the road, do something, but right now, it's a moot point.
If leaving it in gives us a quick and easy way to sell bonds and notes if need be. If we need to do that, then we can amend the development agreement, Eric, and then we can amend this agreement. But if we have no intentions of selling bonds or notes or expending any other taxpayers' money up front, as been stated, then why don't we have an agreement that's going to do exactly what we've told the people from the get-go and take that money or take that portion out? That is the biggest thing in there that concerns me, because we have said all along to the public that we don't make money and won't spend any money or give any money back or rebate money until they make money. So then there's no need to have any language in there that allows the idea of bonds or notes or spending any other forms of revenue that comes into the city if this project's going to be done on its own. I mean, that is what we've told the public from the get-go.
Mr. Narber?
Thank you.
Microphone, please.
Glasses first.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Obligations may be paid for in whole or in part by revenues from other funding sources. These may include state and federal programs. Revenues from any other tax increment financing area which may pursuant to the Act. Tax increment finance areas may share revenues if they abut one another. This TIF does not abut any other TIF in the city. The business district revenues from the city's proposed Route 15 North Business District. The Route 15 North Business District has not yet been established. If it is established, those monies by the redevelopment agreement, as I understand the document, are then in a portion are in fact pledged to this project, but those revenues won't be generated until the project comes online, should the business district be created, and those revenues paid to the state and the city for use in the area. And a portion of the city's hotel operators' occupation tax is also part of the redevelopment agreement. However, there will be none of those revenues generated within this area unless the project is built.
So there's no need to have it in there. That even confirms in my mind there's even further no need to have it in there.
No, sir. I don't believe that's the case, because the agreement uses the business district revenues in this area, and I think it is important to so state. We're saying what in fact these sources of revenue are. Moreover, I think with regard to sources of revenue, nature and term of obligations, and completion of redevelopment project and retirement of obligations, those are sections that must be in a TIF plan in order to, in fact, have a TIF plan. So I would ask for your consideration of that point as well.
So you're saying statutorily that this language must be in there? Is that the answer is yes? Yes, sir. So, which means that any time we could still end up possibly, if this project runs into problems or issues, especially again, as I've stated before, Your Honor, where I have concerns on the vetting process. If the developers would run into revenue problems, we could be selling bonds or notes to help them financially.
Alderman Meyer?
I believe, didn't Eric say that we had to amend the development agreement?
We'd have to do that first.
So we would have to do that prior to that, so that it does not give you carte blanche to do that because you included that in there.
Right.
And then secondly, I believe that, Mr. Norber is the expert on this and has done many, and we are paying him as our consultant, and I think it's prudent that we take his advice.
And once again, as stated before by city attorney, et cetera, tonight is just to move this to the taxing bodies and to the public to give them a chance to review and to give input. The final vote is not, Eric, until May 26th? So there's plenty of time, but what Mr. Norber's saying here tonight is the way it's set up is the way statutorily it needs to be. And I would ask that we would continue and not derail this and continue it forward. I think we would have to first go back and we'd have to change the development plan, and I think we all are in agreement that the developer has told us up front that there's no intent in this project, but like I said, when you're talking about the business district and what if some other component from state government would come forward with an opportunity that passes through us or whatever? I don't know that that's gonna exist.
I'm confused because Mr. Narber stated earlier when he made the statement that it's prudent that this be put in there, that seemed to me that it didn't have to be in there.
He's advising, the way I'm seeing it, Mr. Narber, that it would follow statute and we should do it.
Then it wouldn't be prudent, it has to be in there. It has
Mr.
to-
Mayor, TIF plans need to identify source of funds, nature and term of obligation, completion of the redevelopment project, and retirement of obligations. There are statements with regard to the city may issue obligations and that certain obligations and costs may be paid for. I think it's prudent to have those statements in the plan. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have a motion, a second, to change the plan as written, and that'll be after I talk to Alderman Schneider.
I don't know if you're, thank you. I don't know if you will let me finish everything and then answer, but I do have a few things I want to say. I would like to know what the hurry is of this project. I asked a couple of meetings back to have this put on hold till after the election. There are 8 different aldermen and could change with 8 different aldermen, and the vote can be different. The final vote on this is not until after the election. So then we're going to have 8 different people possibly in here. I can't say for sure how the outgoing aldermen feel about this, and to put this on the new aldermen may feel different, and the total amount of money that we will be spending will be a total loss to the citizens if this would not pass. This would be a very unresponsible spending by everyone that votes for this, unless there is some information I don't have. How do we know it will pass in May? This is not fair to the new aldermen and citizens. It's the new aldermen that will have to deal with this magnitude project. The outgoing alderman won't have to deal with it. So I think we should wait till after the election to even do any more, because just by kind of adding this up, well, you have $227,000 alone for the sewer study. I'm figuring right now we've already out of pocket $300,000. That's a lot of money. And if this doesn't pass, we're out this money, because nobody's going to give it back to us, are they?
You asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking.
First of all, we're not out anything of that magnitude because we are not going to start constructing the sewer unless they start to break ground and start to construct the hotel and the Hoffer House, et cetera.
But this
So-
was the stud. This
So,
was
but
just
you're
the
saying
sewer
300,000. We're not
study. Well,
going
you
to.
add 5,715.
Okay.
I mean, it just goes on, and
Alderman Schneider, if I may, you make a statement, and I understand your concern, but let's say this. We have to, before the council changes, we have to pass a budget. We've done it every year. We're obligated by the ordinances of this city. We can't wait until we get a new council to make all those decisions.
so then, in other words, it's going to be in May when the new aldermen vote on this. the new alderman will be told, you will say yes because
No.
Let me finish. Because you have to, because it's been passed and we had to have the budget done, and that's why it's been all approved before you come on board.
Most of these candidates have been in this room for several weeks now, several months. And I think they've gotten a good earful and knowledge, and certainly if any of them if they have questions, we would certainly supply them with any information too. But I will tell you, and I will say this, if this project doesn't stay on track, we do run a risk to lose the project.
Yes, because that was stated that the developer said if we don't give him what he wants in a TIF, he's gonna hit the road. The deal is off.
No, he said to us,
No,
okay,
my
Alderman
next
Schneider, I'm not
question
gonna, there's
was-
no way I can answer your question.
No, yeah, that's right, because one question that I've asked at every meeting was, how many TIFs has this developer had to have to do all the developments he's done? And you told me that I'd have to ask the developer. You weren't gonna put him on the spot.
Have you
Well,
called
that-
him?
No, that's not, he was here that night. He should have came up and answered it.
And he made himself very
Because the public
available.
has a right to know. Then I have to go and get a hold of the press or the news media and say, this is the answer I found, for the public to know. Because it is on video, I asked the question, it should have been answered so the public could get the answer. Not only me, it's the public also. That is another question of no's, and the answers aren't printed.
Alderman Kinsella.
I'd like to ask, what difference does it make whether he's done none, 1, or 12? What difference does it make?
The difference is, why is he telling us we have to give him TIF money? I think Belleville is known for giving out TIFs. Years ago, cities grew without giving out TIFs and money. And it's just not fair. We give all this money out to these big corporations, and they hire people at minimum wage, which is what the wage is set at, and usually it's part-time. You cannot survive on minimum wage and part-time hours. Where does the big bucks go? It goes to the corporation. The corporation usually isn't even in the state of Illinois, much less the city of Belleville. So they're the ones that are making the decent salary. If you had to live on minimum wage, how many of you in this room could live on minimum wage with part-time hours?
I'd like a clarification. If he has none, or 1, or 5, does that change your vote?
If he told how many and the extension of the circumstances, maybe. But I just don't think we need to be giving out all this TIF money, just like when Wagner Buick was in. We had to give more and more. We had to keep amending to give him more when General Motors wanted to take away his franchise. We kept giving and giving and giving. And then he sells the business. That must be nice to be able to sell a business to another
But the
party.
business is still there, bringing in sales tax.
But it's
It's
what
not
we
gone.
gave him to get to to get the business up, running, and then sell it. I mean, it's just like we're giving all this money away to the richer people to get richer, and our people that have lived here in Belleville and has made Belleville what it is, they're probably working for a lot less. And you take young couples, no wonder they don't want to come to Belleville. Our sales tax is the highest. And when people leave Belleville, they're not only taking them and their luggage and their personal belongings along. When they leave and that house sits empty, we're losing the tax that we would get on the electricity and phones and cable and all that. So we keep losing not only the people. This is what I'm saying. We've got to stop giving this money away and making the tax
Okay.
1% higher, 1/4% higher. I just
We-
think it's wrong.
We can
And
sit-
we've already spent too much money, so if we don't go through with this, whoever is elected in April, and they have to make the vote in May, It's gonna be, well, you know, we've already spent this amount of money, we're not gonna get it back.
We have a $50 million development in front of us. We've had the statements from the father at the shrine and Chris that this project is very important to the future of the shrine. We have jobs. We have approximately, the estimation is $500,000 a year when the first phase is done in sales tax. There's future utility tax and some hotel tax, which we're getting none of any of that right now. And you make mention of these big boxes, but Alderman Schneider, I have to say, we net over $2 million on Green Mile Commons and the Target, the Desco TIFs, each year over. And that's general fund, and that pays for police and fire. If we hadn't worked those development agreements with those entities and build those shopping centers, we would be really in the hole in our general fund. And there would be a lot of people that didn't even have that level of job. And so I have to disagree with you very respectfully that there's a lot of development here that has happened because we've worked as a team to attract it. Mr. Kinsella.
I'd like to get back to Mr. Hayden's suggestion to strike parts of this redevelopment plan. The truth is that 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, the same city council that would be, if they decide to sell bonds or obligations, the same city council that does that, if they have the votes to sell the bonds, they'd have the votes to change the redevelopment agreement. So to me, it's a moot issue. If our consultant says it's prudent to put it in there, I see no problem, because down the road, they can't change it without a majority of the council.
It has to be a strong majority, right? Something like that.
Again, this is a proposed plan. This is not the approval. You're not considering the approval of this plan because you can't until you get the necessary statutorily required input from the taxing districts and the public. So this is procedural. It's to initiate the process where people can give input of any nature, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And it's after that input and after the public hearing, I believe it's got to be at least 14 days after the public hearing, which is in May. So you're looking at 2 months from now is when you would ultimately consider the approval of this plan.
And the ordinances. Alderman Hayden.
Yeah, just to follow up, Your Honor. I understand what you're saying, my colleague from Ward 1. 5 years from now with different council, yeah. This is what this council is doing. We have told, it's been stated from the get-go that there's going to be no other money up front and no other city money spent. So if it's procedural, then I can't see why we can't amend the document and tell the public that we're going to do exactly what we're saying now. And that's what we've told the public all along, Your Honor. But we got a document that has things in there that to me, allows those things down the road, which means that to me, again, we're pulling a bait and switch on the public, because we have led the public to agree and understand all along that there'd be no bonds, no notes, no nothing, no other public source of money being used. So why do we need it in this document?
Because as we heard from Mr. Narber, it's statutorily and the language is written and it's recommended that we do so, and we're asking. So we have a motion on the floor to make the amendment.
You said it was prudent to put it in there.
We have a motion, an aye vote would agree to Mr. Hayden and Alderman Schneider's amendment to take that out. A no vote would not allow that amendment to be made, and then we'll go from there. So hearing nothing further, I'd call for a roll call vote.
Heisler.
I would be for the amendment.
Heisler.
No.
Kinsella.
No.
Meyer.
No.
Schmidt.
No.
Ridgewitz.
No.
Anthony.
No.
Hayden.
Aye.
Seibert.
No.
Galletti. Musgrove.
No.
Orlett. Schneider.
Aye.
Fails.
8 to 3 to 1.
Yes, sir.
The chair would vote aye. Didn't he? Okay, I'm just making sure I don't miss an opportunity here. So the amendment fails.
Can I ask the city attorney, could he repeat what he just said to you? I couldn't hear him. I think
There are certain instances where the chair would vote, and I can get them before I can show you.
I thought you said that the chair would vote only if there was not a majority.
There are 3 instances in which the chair would vote. Bear with me, I'll tell you. One of them is when the vote of the aldermen or trustees has resulted in a tie. The second is the one I just referenced, when 1/2 of the aldermen or trustees elected have voted in favor of an ordinance, resolution, or motion, even though there is no tie vote, or when a vote greater than a majority of the corporate authorities is required by state statute or local ordinance to adopt an ordinance, resolution, or motion. None of those 3 exist.
Thank you.
And I wasn't certain, and last time that happened once before, you remember, there was a question of how quick I voted. So I wanted to make sure it was, if necessary, how I voted. So now we have a motion, the original motion that Alderman Kinsella, coming from Economic Development, made to accept the Route 15 TIF redevelopment plan, place it on file, and send it to all the underlying taxing districts and the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And I believe Alderman Anthony made the original second, correct? Hearing no further, we have a roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Ridgewitz. Anthony.
Aye.
Hayden.
No.
Seibert.
Aye.
Galletti. Musgrove.
Aye.
Orlett. Schneider.
No.
And the chair would vote aye. That was an abstention.
Then that's half the aldermen you need to vote.
And I would vote aye. The chair votes aye. So the motion carries, correct?
Yeah, you're the 9th vote.
I'm the-
I have him as the 9th vote.
Yes.
Okay, so this motion carries, and we'll continue with the meeting. We go to communications. We have 2 on here.
9A, the Belleville Sound of Harmony Barbershop Chorus. A request from the Belleville Sound of Harmony Barbershop Chorus to hold their 66th annual show at Belleville Township High School East on Saturday, April 11, 2015. They are also requesting to hang a banner at the entrance of the city. Do you mind if I read both?
That's fine, go ahead.
9B, Belleville Oktoberfest Committee. A request from the Belleville Oktoberfest Committee along with the Southern Illinois Street Routers to have a car show in conjunction with Oktoberfest Festival on September 29, 2015. Also requesting to close West Main Street from 1st through 3rd Street and 1st and 2nd Streets north and south from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
I move we comply with the request. Second.
Motion by Alderman, excuse me? Motion by Alderman Meyer, second by Alderman Schmidt. Discussion on the 2 motions. All in favor of the 2 motions signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have ordinance. I ask for a motion to read. Do you want to read them separately, or can we read them together? We've been through this.
Separate.
Okay, there's a request for separate. I'd ask for a motion to read ordinance 7851 by title only.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Schmidt. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Anthony. Do I hear discussion on reading that ordinance by title only? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Ordinance number 7851, an ordinance fixing a time and place for a public hearing concerning the Route 15 North redevelopment project area and redevelopment plan.
Do I hear a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Schmidt. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Anthony. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 7851. Alderman Kinsella.
I must be overlooking, but I don't see the time. I see that it says Monday.
It's in the,
11.
Eric, is it in there?
6 p.m.
Huh? 6 p.m. It's in there. And the date again, Eric? May 11th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
in this council chamber. Good question. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 7851. There's no further questions. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Ridgewitz.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Hayden.
No.
Seibert. Galletti.
No.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Orlett. Schneider.
No.
I would also, the chair, vote aye. The motion carries. We move to ordinance number, ask for a motion to read by title only, 7852.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Schmidt, second by Alderman Anthony, to read this ordinance by title only. All in favor of the motion to read by title only signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carries.
Ordinance number 7852, an ordinance creating joint review board for the Route 15 North Redevelopment Project area and setting an initial meeting time and place.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Schmidt, do I hear a second? Second by Alderman Anthony. Do I hear discussion on ordinance 7852? Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. Section 1, we have Stuckey Township in there, so this area is not going to, when we annex this, it's not going to be coterminous?
No. That's, Mr. Harder, you want to explain?
The town, Belleville Township will still be considered coterminous with the city of Belleville, but the boundaries will not be identical. There's a provision in the township code that provides for the opportunity for a in an annexation, the former township to remain over that property rather than a coterminous township if there is an intergovernmental agreement approved by all the parties, and there was previously an intergovernmental agreement.
When we annexed that 20 acres with Alsop.
When you annexed Alsop, that provided that any future annexations, the annexed territory would remain in Stuckey Township.
Then why, because I was at a township meeting a while back, why did they have to adopt some of this with it if it's not affecting them?
They had to adopt the enterprise zone.
Was the enterprise zone?
The enterprise zone, but they were
Yeah.
taken to the.
The extension to the application for the new enterprise zone would impact
'Cause they
both
invited it.
townships.
Okay, all
Right.
right, thank you.
We have a motion and we have a second, correct, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Roll call on ordinance 7852.
Heisler. Aye. Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Ridgewitz.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Hayden.
No.
Seibert. Galletti. Musgrove.
Aye.
Orlett. Schneider.
No.
Chair also votes aye. Motion carries. Two ordinances have passed. We go on to unfinished business. Does anyone have anything? This was a special meeting, so there's not a lot. Miscellaneous and new business. I would ask for a motion to go into executive session so the council could discuss possibly a personnel litigation, a workers' compensation, property acquisition, or the transfer of property or approval executive session. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Schmidt. Do I hear a second? Second by Alderman Heisler. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we will
Yeah, he deserves bad ovation for that.
We're back in regular session. We have one item on the motion yet tonight. The motion is, I'm asking for a motion to approve the reclassification of position of Grants Coordinator to Assistant Director of Economic Development.
So moved, Your Honor.
We have a motion by Alderman Schmidt, second by Alderman Heisler. Just to explain to the public, Eric Schauster has been in the Economic Development Office as our Grants Coordinator for 15 years. He has done an excellent job. He's held the fort down on more than one occasion in the absence of a director, and he is doing the duties of an assistant director each and every day. And we felt it's long overdue time that he would be raised up to the level at what he's performing and what we count on him for. And so that is the motion in the second. Is there any further questions? Roll call.
Heisler. Aye. Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Ridgewitz.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Seibert. Galletti.
Aye.
Musgrove. Orlett. Schneider.
Aye.
Motion carries, unanimous. Eric, thank you, congratulations. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by Alderman Galletti. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.